From my understanding, Maine doesn't have red flag laws, and from what we know about the situation, there seem to have been a lot of red flags that were left by the suspected shooter. If this would have happened in Florida, is it possible there could have been a different outcome with the mental health problems? Could the weapons have been taken away sooner?
So actually, just Maine actually is a yellow flag state. And there's a big difference and a big variance with respect to what someone can and can't do. And the biggest difference between the red flag states and the yellow flag states, such as in Maine, is that if you are a loved one or a relative or someone who is non-law enforcement, you yourself cannot petition a court to involuntarily commit someone. As well as if someone self-surrenders and commits themselves, that is very different than what we see down here in Florida, where a mother, a father, a sister, brother, a close relative, or even a dear friend could go to law enforcement and have that person, if deemed that they are having some mental episodes, committed. And so, given the information that I have, because he's kind of self-surrendered, that would not rise to the level or the occasion under the laws as written in Maine that he would be required to surrender his weapons. And that's a huge, big loophole. And keep in mind that Maine is really an open carry state. Their idea of gun control is marginal at best. And so this is now coming home to unfortunately show why this is probably not sufficient in an effort to curtail something from this happening.
So aside from a red or a yellow flag law, are there other signs that just simply law enforcement missed here?
Well, look, again, if law enforcement had had initial contact with this individual and they would have made a command decision that this person does not have the mental capacity, they would have moved to involuntarily committed him. And at that point, a court would have a right to take away his weapons until they deem that he is taking whatever corrective measures there are. So if Robert Card has not had any contact with law enforcement, then again, the fact that he went through some mental health episodes, during the summer, whether related to him being Army Reserve or otherwise, that's a very different scenario in Maine than it would be here in Florida.
Talk to me about the search effort that's underway. I mean, it started in the dead of night. Are the FBI and the police kind of at a disadvantage here? How, based on the amount of time that's elapsed, what are they up against?
So as I tell everybody, we get so fixated on watching movies on television or on Netflix, and the movie starts and 60 minutes later you have the entire plot solved. In real life, especially where there's an understanding or an anticipation, hopefully, to apprehend this individual, they have to make sure that every step, every move, every investigative tool that is used is going to comport with being introduced in a court of law. So patience must be exercised because you don't get a do-over. You don't get a second chance to make it right. And so, for example, when we talk about maybe this individual's mental health records, it's going to take a judge to execute a search warrant to compel a mental health professional to turn over those medical records. If I want to get his credit card information, if I want to get his cell phone records, it's going to take a subpoena or a search warrant. Those do take time. And that's exactly what they were doing throughout the night. The FBI has tremendous resources, tremendous assets, rapid response, because certainly local law enforcement in their wildest of imagination could never have anticipated this type of scene playing out, and especially compounded by two separate crime scenes. They're overwhelmed. And that's where the FBI with the federal assets will come in to really assist local law enforcement, number one, in securing both crime scenes, and also in trying to locate and apprehend Robert Card.
As you watch this unfold, what are some of your other big takeaways? And also, you have a community here that people are frightened. They're sheltering in their homes. What kind of message do you have for them?
Well, look, it's a very hypersensitive, very nerve-wracking. Anytime you see schools on lockdown, or anytime you see schools closed, I think we forget about the everlasting impact that that has on, families and on the children. And, that's unfortunately the world that we live in. It's a very sad state to have to admit that here in the United States, we have to close schools because we have this person that's running amongst us who can, rear its head again and start killing innocent people. And so these are scary times. Law enforcement is working around the clock to try to locate and apprehend him. I think also you need to understand law enforcement, and especially with trying to speak to Robert Card's mental health professionals, trying to figure out, was this what I call spontaneous combustion? Did he get up yesterday and for whatever reason, something set him off and he went out and committed this carnage? Or is this a bigger scheme, a bigger plot where he was planning, laying in waiting? And that's a more dynamic, more complicated scenario for law enforcement, because then he had time to prepare and plan his escape. And so if it's spontaneous combustion, he may just be in panic mode. He just may be eluding and hiding law enforcement. Different than if he had time to prepare and plan. He could be in another state. He could be out of the country. We just don't know. But that's what they're trying to figure out right now.